Anna Innkeeper seemed to include the planet at her feet while finish as the 2017 London Marathon runner's fastest amateurish woman begun. Her productivity gained her an England crew location in Howe Falls Toronto Marathon runner. The later 25-year-old completed the London racing in 2 several hours, 37 protocol and passing to Canada 6 months after. But 10 miles in her world opening, Anna's ankle bone broken. It was terrible, I'd never not completed a racing in my lifetime. I mind I could fair fight to the end once, but I implemented I would not be capable to go on, I fair had to sit on the curb and expect. But worst was to go for the read begun. In supplement to the distress crack of her ankle bone, tests found impoverished ivory thickness, consisting bone loss in her spinal, that done fractures a actual hazard. These symptoms were all hallmarks of a state-named family member power deficit in kind of sports, Scarlett S. The occurs while sport human beings limit their dietary in the faith how continuous way losing will hold increasing productivity, to such an degree how several of the flesh's functions start to close downward. The state can reason a band of public health problems in men and female consisting a fall in hormonal levels, a degradation in ivory thickness, a fall in metabolism bet and psychological public health problems. Anna, who planned as a therapist, admits she was aware of the state but was so frantic to hold increasing how she neglected the precautionary signs, that turned on not possessing a time for 8 year. It was a lot to do in my learning amount and not consuming quite, not creature broad quite in my meal groups, creature limiting in carbohydrates, she says. I was learning 2 times a day, I was fleeing 100 advantage miles a 1 week at times, and you burn up a lot of power in how, and of a begun's perspect you get it in yours reason how you requirement to be the racing way thou get trapped up in the loop of fleeing very quick, needing to miss a slight more than way, shove how racing way a slight bit more than, fleeing more rapid, and later fair break, that is which happened. The country of Anna's public health was found up any more than severe harm could be made or, following a year's otherwise, she has been capable to slow back to fleeing. Scarlett S. can influence man and woman athletes and became a recognized state in 2014, substitute L state named Woman Sportsman Triangle, that recognized the influence of too few amount of calories amongst sportswomen just. Down there include been few teaching in the incidence of the state but it is understood to be largest overall in sports such as athletic, biking and dancing, wherever creature lighting could do a considerable distinction to productivity. On Saturday, the Number Train Brave campaigning is creature startup to lift knowledge of the risks of Scarlett S., especially amongst promise amateurish sports people who may be hard to enhance their productivity out of give or quite mind to their dietary. It was the identical driving for productivity improvement that led bicyclist Sam Woodfield, 28, of Northamptonshire, to miss up to a third of his flesh weight in a year, following take up the kind of sports in 2016. Possessing previous been a bodybuilder and a nature athlete, loser several way helping him to quickly advance to a competition standard in the kind of sports and he began to get it severely. But his driving for superior productivity spiraled to the spot how he was often durable exhausting learning rides out of consuming. For Sam the equalization was easy, cigarette lighter intended more rapid that intended I stood more than opportunity of winner. For a period it treated but his victories came at an enormous price. By 2017 Sam had so slight power he could hardly go upper floor, he could not sleeping and his psychological public health was affliction. He recognized he necessary assist and had a episode of tests that show the real price of his chase of productivity. I was said I had really low splanchnic fat about my flesh that is significant fat you requirement to hold you live, he says. I was as well said how, as so as possessing no testosterone production, I had the ivory thickness of an 80-year-old in my spinal and my hips. It was a really terrible spot in my lifetime. Dr. Nikki Key, a kind of sports and dancing endocrinology, says Scarlett S. occurs while the sportsman's flesh does not include quite power to suffer it and begins to close downward. She says, this flesh partitions the power you get of yours dietary. You requirement and some to lid learning, later the left power is which you requirement for date-to-date lifetime. If thou not receive quite replacement power you go in surviving regime. Estrogen levels fall in female and testosterone production for men that is key for ivory public health. It's love while yours telephone cell tablet to a low standard, it switches off lot of non-essential apps, the is which the flesh is making. 5. Dwell investigates requested UK athletic which it was making to lift knowledge of the risks amongst athletes. In answer, it told it planned in a quantity of affiliate organisations, consisting the British Institution of Kind of Sports, to provide knowledge and treat of the facility how our portion of the Scarlet S.